What's going on, everyone? So, we got per Jovan Buha. He reported that people are starting to temper their expectations as to what the Lakers are actually going to do. I think that there's some skepticism as to them potentially using the first round pick, and that in part being both the market in terms of who's available and what the prices are. But also just in general, looking at teams I'm interested to see how many first round picks are actually moved at this upcoming trade deadline, he said. Now, he's talking about just the overall, both the package, right? Like players that are available right now, players that are out there right now aren't really demanding first round picks, right? Like Nikola Vucevic is supposedly able to be had for seconds. Zach LaVine, like all these guys. So it's a combination of that. It's a combination of Rob Pelinka has to be smart with those first. You can't just give them away just to give them away, right? Like, and dude, like, why would you pay? So, for example, right, like, if you go buy a car right now for 10 grand, the car you want for 10 grand, are you really going to give them 50? Right? No, you buy it for 10. And that's the point, right? It's something that I've talked about, like, right? Like when people, even like Austin Reeves or, multiple firsts or whatever, like I'm a big Zach LaVine guy. Many people know I like Zach LaVine. And I've had people be like, would you trade Austin Reeves for Zach LaVine? No, not because I don't think he's better or in normal circumstances I wouldn't, but you shouldn't have to based on the circumstances, right? Like if this was a normal, like if the new CBA didn't exist and Chicago wasn't trying to tank for the bottom, right? Then yeah, I'd be like, yeah, Zach LaVine's a better player, bring in Zach LaVine. But that's not the reality here, right? Like there's circumstances, there's context that matters. So to me, it's like, why would you overpay, right? Like if it cost if it really truly required a first to go get a guy like a Zach LaVine or a Nikola Vucevic or whatever, then fine, go get those guys. But the reality is that it shouldn't, nor should you at this time, because you don't have all these other teams that are vying for that and trying to get that. And there's several other options on the market that do the same thing, maybe not so much for Zach LaVine, but like Nikola Vucevic, stuff like that the Lakers need, that can fill the hole that the Lakers have. Maybe not to the highest level like a Nikola Vucevic, but still kind of plug in and would cost you a second or two as opposed to if you had to give up a first. Obviously, again, Nikola Vucevic reportedly can be had for just a second. But I also don't want, like Rob Pelinka has said publicly, 3 times now, that he's willing to trade those firsts, even for a marginal move, if the move makes sense. What did he say? Lakers excellence, I think was how he put it. Like, if you find guys that establish Lakers excellence or continue the Lakers excellence. So I do think if the right moves are there, like I've talked about, maybe not so much now because Nick Richards is gone, but before the Nick Richards trade, something that I talked about was like, if you could get, say, a Nick Richards, a Josh Green, and a Cody Martin, I would give up a first for that. I'd give up a first and both seconds for that, right? Because you're filling in all the holes that you need. Lakers are very limited on their assets. So Rob Pelinka has to continue to be patient, has to continue to be smart, right? Even in the case of the higher end guys, right? Like even Brandon Ingram probably wouldn't cost a first right now, right? Because nobody else wants him. Nobody else is after him. Why would you give up a first for a guy that shouldn't cost a first, right? Like, and is Brandon Ingram, there's so much risk with his injury history. He wants a new max contract, right? He could just leave in the offseason, right? So teams don't want to just sign up for even like a Brandon Ingram, right? Zach LaVine, his contract. Zach LaVine's having a historic year. You're seeing several guys right now Bradley Beal even, right? Jimmy Butler, guys that are just like genuine stars, guys that could go and completely change the dynamic of a team, and everybody's reluctant and doesn't want to do it because of the new CBA. And Jovan says in the same report is that he's curious to see how many firsts actually get traded, period. Not even the Lakers first. Just how many firsts in trades, period, end up happening. Think of all the trades that have happened. Firsts haven't been involved. It's been seconds or players or whatever, right? Like even Nick Richards went for essentially a Kogi in 2 seconds. I know it was 3 seconds on paper, but they got a second back. So they only lost 2 seconds worth of value, right? And got a guy that they needed. Lakers got Dorian Finney-Smith for 3 seconds. There are no firsts involved, and teams were trying, or the Nets were trying very hard to get a first for Dorian Finney-Smith, right? But things have changed because of the new CBA. No one wants to give up firsts. No one wants to give up, because that's young talent, young cheap talent that you'd have for X amount of years, right? Like, even if that guy goes and becomes a star, he's not going to make 40, 50, 60 million till like 5, 6, 7 years in, right? So, like, for him to start making like the insane money that changes everything, you're in good shape. Or even just a role guy, a rotation guy, whatever, right? So, like, draft picks have become more valuable, have been more scarce, right? Teams are more reluctant to give them up. So, I do believe you're going to continue to see guys, even in the next offseason, that, one, are going to be traded that you didn't expect to get traded, right? Like, anytime I, like, mention a guy or talk about a guy, teams are like, oh, they're not going to trade him. Like, don't be shocked. Again, the new CBA changes things. So, you're going to see guys get traded that probably never would have been traded otherwise, right? You're going to see deals not get done that would have gotten done otherwise. Like, for example, Jimmy Butler would have probably already been a Phoenix Sun right now if it wasn't for the new CBA, right? Because you would have had Phoenix essentially unload all their picks, and they would have just stacked a bunch of contracts up in order to get Bradley Beal, and they would have just went with Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Jimmy Butler, and just figured it out from there. Right? Like, they would have figured something, or a team might have been more willing to take on Bradley Beal if they got some picks or some assets out of it. Right? Everything changes if you have the new CBA, but the problem is you don't. And so that's where the dilemma lies. So teams aren't running to the door to go and give up a bunch of firsts for all these guys, which is why I've talked about, like, the Lakers might be able to get, a Bruce Brown and a Nikola Vucevic and not even give up any other picks. Right? Because you could go do 2 seconds for Nikola Vucevic and then do like a pick swap for Bruce Brown. Right? Like, there was even rumors that were going around that the Lakers were talking about Bruce Brown and Abaji, not Akogi. Kogi's the guy that got traded to the Suns, or to the Hornets, right? Abaji, that the Lakers might be able to get both for a pick swap in 2 seconds. You're talking about a 24-year-old 3-and-D wing that's shooting 40% from 3. Right? Any other season, he probably goes for a first, right? Like, maybe a protective, but still a first, right? So you're seeing the landscape change. You're seeing everything kind of be flipped on its head a little bit here, and it's really interesting to see, in my opinion. It's been fascinating to watch kind of how this plays out, and I think it's going to continue to be very fascinating to see how this all plays out. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think that the Lakers should, hold on to those first, especially if they don't have to trade? Like, I don't want to see them hold on. Like, to me, it's F the picks, right? F them picks, but only if it comes down to that, right? I don't want it to be F them picks if the Lakers can keep the picks and still get everybody that they need, right? Like, that's the difference. So, anyway, again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it either way. So let me know down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Either way, let me know. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.